Hello everybody, this is Jason Ballay. I am going to talk to you about how I discovered QHHT, and since this is a YouTube video, I'm going to give you the longer version of this and so on. Okay, so how I discovered QHHT. I'm going to talk about two main subjects, two main parts brought me to QHHT, I would say. It just wasn't one thing that brought me to discover QHHT from Dolores Cannon. So it was more of two things becoming one. As you can see, there's a left side and a right side and two arrows pointing up to QHHT. All right, the first thing that brought me to QHHT, we're going to go back to probably, let's say, 2002. I was always a big fan of Atlantis, the stories of Atlantis, ever since I was younger, and anything that had to talk about with Atlantis, I was interested in. And at this time, it was more TV shows and more of Discovery Channel, National Geographic, or anything that had a program on TV where they were talking about Atlantis, and it caught my attention. I was glued to the TV because I wanted to know what they were going to talk about and what they were going to say. So some years go by, and I am going to add a little part right here. Someone introduced me to a book, I want to say probably 2010 maybe, called Mysteries of the Crystal Skulls. So I was reading this book, and let me back up a little bit. So someone gave me this book, and because I was watching that program that comes on the History Channel. So this episode of the Crystal Skulls on Ancient Aliens, they were talking about different powers, how they didn't know exactly what it was for, and how they did all these testings. Hewlett Packard had these skulls, and find out if it was more recent or if it was more ancient. So they did all these tests, and they found a lot of unique things about the crystal skulls, a lot of unique situations with it, that how they were formed and cut, how it went against the grain, that this skull should not ever exist. And Karen heard this episode of Ancient Aliens, and she was like, "Oh, I think you're gonna like this book. If you like this episode, I have this book over here called The Mysteries of the Crystal Skulls, and you can have it." I read it and I thought it was okay, but I think you will love this book. So I started reading this book, and not knowing that in the book they were going to bring up Atlantis, but they did. So I say probably 25% into the book, they start talking about Atlantis. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I didn't think that these crystal skulls was linked to Atlantis, but it's in this book. So I started reading it, and it would start talking about a lot of unique powers, and how Atlantis was so advanced, and how Atlantis had this advanced technology, and they were so much ahead of us. And I was like, well, how can they be so far ahead of us if no one has any records or knowledge of this? But so these were some messages from the crystal skulls, and that we did not know a lot of our history, a lot of our past. So I read the whole book, and there was only a small section that talked about Atlantis, and then it started talking about the mines, because that's where the skull was discovered. And they started talking about not like the future, but kind of like where we are today, and what to expect, and us raising our vibrations, and us becoming more aware and coming together, and so on. Put the book down, and then next thing, so I'm watching TV, and an episode comes on that talks about Edgar Cayce. So in this episode with Edgar Cayce, he mentions Atlantis. So I'm like, okay, interesting. He's talking about Atlantis, and he had these sessions with these clients that he was able to connect to the Akashic records, and he was even able to talk about how these people had past lives in Atlantis, and he was to give them information. So on Amazon, I checked out some of his books, started reading some of his books, and he even has a book just Edgar Cayce, Atlantis. So all his sessions, all his documents on Atlantis is located in his book. So I bought, I think it was about 3 books. I think it was about 3 of them. So I bought all 3 of them, started reading them, and then it goes even to more detail about Atlantis, and so like how they destroyed themselves, and how they the sons of Belial, I know I'm going to pronounce that wrong, but I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. And the sons of light, how they were always fighting with each other, bumping heads, fighting for territory, fighting for rights, and to be more dominant, and so on. Even more, like talking about how they had free energy and free healthcare. They had the ability to heal easier than what we do today. So, and they had a better means of transportation than what we do today. A lot of their transportation was free. A lot of their energy was free. A lot of their healthcare was free. If you was sick or anything like that, you just went to the temple and they healed you. And they healed you with these crystals. And Edgar Cayce talks a lot more about that, about how they had these crystals, and the use of these crystals would power everything. Heal you, power up the equipment. If you wanted to travel somewhere, or vehicles, they use crystals for their base of technology with everything. So if there was anything that was advanced, it had some relations to crystals. And I was like, man, how come nobody is talking about this in mainstream? Like, how come there's nothing, a movie or a sci-fi story or something that talks about Atlantis like this, and says, hey, look guys, look into this, and this amazing history that is lost from us is not even being talked about. So in 2017, I decided to create Guardians of Magic, which is a sci-fi action story, and it deals with the time of Atlantis, but it's also, with a twist to it, intergalactic. So this deals with other planets assisting Atlantis, and come to find out, this is true in another book, that they had visitors from Sirius and other planets that came to Atlantis to help them. So, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing, because this kind of goes along with the story I was putting together for Guardians of Magic that I was putting together. So I was doing some research on YouTube, and I came across Dolores Cannon's video, and she started talking about past life regression and how she will put people in hypnosis, and she'll have these sessions with people, and they will have this information just come out, and it could be anything from Atlantis, Egypt, Rome, the 18th century, 15th century, it didn't matter. So, but she did talk about how some of her clients had past lives in Atlantis, and she had books on it. So I'm like, okay. So I went to Amazon, found her books, and it was Convoluted Universe, the first one and the second one. Bought those books right away. I didn't care. I didn't even look at the reviews. I didn't care what they said about them, even though they had I think it was 3,000 reviews on it, or something like that, or 2,000 reviews. So I was like, this is good. Talks about Atlantis. I'm interested. Past life regression kind of reminds me of Edgar Cayce. Good. Sold. Bought the books. The minute they came in, I went straight to the Atlantis section. So open up the book, says, okay, which one talks about Atlantis? Went straight to it, and the information was amazing. So in this one, instead of the guy having information about it, he was actually went there to Atlantis, and he was able to visually see it, visually see what was going on with Atlantis, what they were doing, the energy, the power, the advanced technology that they had at that time, the way they lived. Now, there is a dark side to Atlantis. I will give you that. I don't want to give you too much information because I don't want to spoil it for you, but there is a dark side to Atlantis, and of course you know that because because they destroyed themselves. So not once but twice. So, and with that information, he was able to see with his own eyes and under hypnosis what was going on, how they were able to change DNA, how they were able to heal, how they were so much more advanced than what we were on so many levels. Not everything, but so many levels. And they could use these crystals and guide them to see a person's DNA, what they needed done, what kind of healing they needed, what temple they needed to go to, or what section of the building that had a certain light form, because everything is energy, everything is light. And they will put them in these certain rooms, and this light will heal them. So that was kind of like the first one. Read the second one, straight to the Atlantis section. Went straight to it, and same thing. Starts talking more about Atlantis and what they did, and the good and the bad, and the lifestyles, and how Atlantis was very, very modern to our times. And another book is that if you was to consider our way of living in the 1940s or 50s with advanced technology, so that type of lifestyle but with more advanced technology. So after I was done reading all the two books about Atlantis and reading Convoluted Universe and so on, I decided to read the rest of the book, see what else they talk about. And I'm reading her book, and I start getting into more of the second one. It starts talking about a little bit of the first one too, but the second one goes into how she would heal these people from from these people's subconscious and their higher selves. Will take the energy, because everything is energy. So if you have negative energy inside of you, they will use this positive energy to get rid of that negative energy. So that negative energy could be sickness, it could be cancer, it can be aches, pains that are negative, but you replace it with the positive energy, heal it, and get rid of that negative energy that's inside of you. And there's so much healing that talks about it. It goes into us being connected with past lives. So these past lives, and I talked about it in one of my other videos, is that you're still connected to these past lives, usually, sometimes. And if you're still connected to these past lives, I even had a client that had her stomach was cut open, and since she was still connected to that past life, she was still having problems with her stomach. So every time she would eat anything or drink anything, she will always have these stomach cramps, these feelings in her stomach of pain. So when the higher self came in, I asked the higher self, like, can you disconnect her from this life where she experienced this pain in this previous life when her stomach was slashed open? And the higher self says yes, she doesn't need to experience that anymore. She doesn't need that information anymore. Disconnect that past life, and next her stomach is better or feeling better. It talks about so much stuff. So much stuff comes from QHHT. And if you want to look at that video, check out this video. It would be this tab, but it would be what does QHHT mean for me. Just to run through, it shows how everything is connected. Everything is energy. We're energy. Everything has consciousness. So it shows how other planets are connected, how we're connected to the planet, aliens, galaxies, and portals. It talks about everything. Ancient civilizations, stuff that happened in Egypt with the Sphinx, which is pretty amazing. Amazing stories. I will give you that. So if you're not a big fan of Atlantis, maybe you want to check it out for the Egyptian stuff. And with the Sphinx, you will be amazed. So new information about the Sphinx is in there, and no one's talking about it. So, but I don't want to spoil it for you. And I think that's in her second book, Convoluted Universe Part 2. So I don't think it's in the first one, but buy both of them, you won't regret it. So for Convoluted Universe. And let's see, if you want to see what those books look like, they're right here. So this is the first one, and this is the second one. So this is the second one, that's the first one. And if I remember correctly, the first one goes more into Atlantis, and the second one goes into it a little bit, but not as much. But it also talks about Egypt as well. So check them out. The second part. So as I'm reading Dolores Cannon's books, and it's talking about all the healing and all the amazing stuff that's coming from it, whether it's information, healing, helping people, just so much, how we're connected to our past lives that hurt us in this life today. And it talks about karma. If you develop karma in a previous life and you still carrying over that karma and you did not solve it, then you still hurting from it. So if you can solve that karma, that's one less thing you have to worry about. Same thing with the body. The body is a messenger. The body will send you messages, and if you're not listening to the messages, it will show you pain. It will show you discomfort. So if you can answer these messages from the body, which in hypnosis, it helps solve those messages, and to where you can get it and get that healing that you're looking for. So, and another thing that I loved about it is how in her sessions, how the higher self and the subconscious talks about surgery, how that's such a cruel and mundane way of healing someone, and it's so unnecessary. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. That's interesting stuff. So, but I will leave the healing part later for another video, and I'm just going to continue on and talk about the second part. So this is the second part that maybe get into QHHT. So at the same time, I'm working on two projects. I was working on Guardians of Magic for the sci-fi action story, and then on the other hand, I'm working on health products, or something healthy and good for my clients for WorkToInvest. The business clients, or these people that are just trying to do the right things and invest in their lives, invest into their financial goals, invest into their health. So I was exploring a health product, but I did not want something that had chemicals in it, or these pills or powders that had other additives and chemicals in it. I just wanted something more pure and healthy, and something to help these clients like deep down inside, and like truly help them. So I was like, wow, it's like two things in one. You get all the information, and whether it's ancient technology or ancient information, and then you get the healing from it as well. So, and the healing comes from the higher self. So it doesn't come from the practitioner. The practitioner is more of a guide. So the healing comes from you, and it comes from your higher self, your subconscious. And the subconscious, you're pretty much given permission for the subconscious to do what it has to do to heal you. So on Earth, this is a free will planet, so you have a right to experience that pain. If you want pain, you can experience pain. And if you want to experience something else, if you want to experience this, but on the flip side, you have to follow these rules, and you need to get these messages too. So that's the other part of it. So with this healing, it also helps out the clients with WorkToInvest, because these clients will run into why is my life like this? Why am I fighting with my wife? Why am I not getting along with my kids? And then to bring back the past life situation, you might not be getting along with your kids in this life because in the previous life you did something, and now you have to make amends. You have to make this life correct. You have to make this life right, because in the previous life you could have did something to them to where they were, your enemy. And now say, hey, you was my enemy in this life. In this life we're going to be together. I might be the son, you be the father. And that son might be still remembering some portion of anger and hate from the previous life. So in this life, they're still connected, and they have to get over that karma and learn how to come together, heal each other, love each other, get past that, and so it can be healed. So in the next life, they can say, hey, in the previous life, I did this. In this life, I'm good. We can go our separate ways. So you have a lot of examples of that in QHHT sessions. So you have a lot of examples of that type of healing. And that was a perfect scenario for my clients, to explore those options of, how come I'm not getting along with my wife? How come I'm not married? How come, I'm having a successful business, but I'm unhappy? Why am I not happy? Am I on my right path? Am I on my right, correct journey? And this helps you explore that, whether or not you're on your right path or if you're not on your right, correct journey. So another thing for my clients will WorkToInvest was on the opposite end. I'm trying to do all the right things, but I just can't grasp anything, and I can't get a hold of, doing things right, growing my business and growing my finances. I feel like I'm always broke. I feel like, I can never get ahead. And this can help as well, because you just never know what hidden message or hidden information that is needed for you from your higher self to help you excel, to help you go forward. So this was like perfect. So it was like 2 for 1. You got my story with Guardians of Magic, and then you had the information of the help for the WorkToInvest clients. So it was a win-win situation. 2 things coming together, and I was like, unbelievable. So sign me up. Sign up, went to the class for QHHT, and it was kind of like, I'm just going to give this a shot. I'm just going to see what this is all about. I've read 3 books by now from Dolores Cannon. I read 3 of her books at this point. I'm like, I'm just going to sign up, see what this is all about, see if I can do it, and see if this resonates with me. And going through the classes and the sessions, and I was like, wow, this is, left and right, just amazing information coming from the left and coming from the right from all the speakers. And Dolores Cannon is not with us any longer, but her daughter is still running QHHT, and Julia is amazing as well, and she has so much love and so much passion for everybody. And just the people there were just so like-minded and so nice. It was, and beautiful souls, fun, loving. It was almost being like on vacation on a cruise ship. There was so much love and care and kindness. There was that, and plus everybody's on the same level. So it was nice. And when it came down to working on your private sessions, now it's my turn to do my session. I'm the practitioner, and my friend, she's going to be the client. So she's laying in the bed, and we go through the host bill. And at first, I thought she was not under hypnosis. I was like, oh man. I was like, it's not working. Uh-oh. And then next thing you know, everything started clicking. So she started seeing her past life. She started seeing how she was a giant. And once she started describing her hands and how she had this white pale skin, and she had these manly hands. I said, oh, in a past life. I said, yes. So it felt so good that my first session was very good, and that it went through smooth. I went through from the beginning to the end, and so much information. She had a past life on Maldek, and she was an alien on Maldek, which was destroyed a long time ago. And she was talking about how she looked kind of like a frog, an alien type, purplish bluish frog, but humanoid figure. But her skin felt like a tree frog, and it was purple and blue, and kind of like changed colors and everything. And I remember saying at lunch, I'm like, if I can do this every day, this would be amazing. So, and she goes, really? I'm like, yes. I said, this was awesome. This was amazing stuff. So that's my long version of how I discovered QHHT and why I like it, and why I think this is an awesome option for, whether you're exploring health issues or personal issues, or like, what is my life purpose, or what's going on with my life. How come everything is not clicking? Something's not right. How come I'm not getting along with a family member? You just never know what kind of information is going to come out these sessions. So, my name is Jason Ballay. I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm still a little bit nervous at this. I'm trying to relax a little bit more. I know I'm going to have to edit this video a little bit, but give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and you have a blessed day. Thank you. Before I leave, I just want to say, remember, show kindness and bring the light.